and we'll get round 3 underway. So, who did you vote for this time? Or do
Oh,
you...
I voted for Roland.
Oh, you
Roland.
did vote for Roland. Okay.
Oh yeah, he's a powerful wizard.
He is a powerful wizard, yeah. Looks like Log T is throwing a bunch of channel points in, and Uro is fine. It committed 1,000 channel points to breach Tinker.
I
All
agree.
right,
Uro is fine.
Uro is fine. Yeah, Uro never hurt anybody. Uro was egregious in some of the narrower formats with less cards. Let's put it that way.
That's for sure. It's a powerful card.
Yeah.
I like what Uro does at Vintage. It's not very overbearing, but it has a little role that people are trying to fill with it. So
Maybe I'm wrong on this, but it feels like just recently people started messing around with Uro and Vintage, right? Or
yeah,
has that been going on the whole time? I just didn't
no,
know.
no, no. People had kind of wrote it off. But Matt Murray was working on a lot of Uro lists, and I think we eventually convinced some of these rug players to start putting it in their deck. I think the big one was the big outburst of Uro was when Yuta Takahashi put 2 in his 4-color Deathrite Shaman deck,
Hmm.
and convinced a bunch of the Japanese players to play it for the, I don't know if it was the Mana Traders or a showcase, one of the bigger vintage events on Magic Online.
Gotcha. Yeah, so Uro recently started seeing play in Vintage, I guess.
Yeah, like a 1 or 2 of inside the 4-color or rug Deathrite Shaman decks.
Yeah, and Log T, one step ahead of me is something I was about to point out. I guess Uro is kind of not as good as Treasure Cruise and Dig Through Time in Vintage, so maybe it just
Yeah,
kind of...
that's the big problem. It takes up a very uh there's a lot of competition for how you use your graveyard in Vintage.
Yeah,
Um some of these decks are even playing Dreadhorde Arcanist, which is eating 1 mana spells and 2 delve spells, and it all starts to is a cost, and you can only do so much of it.
agreed.
The
Um,
thing that I'm most familiar with is it's a rule that I made up for PO decks. It's the rule of 2.5, and you can only play 2.5 delve spells. Um
okay.
and the thing I include in that is Yawgmoth's Will counts as 1, any delve spell counts as 1, and Snapcaster counts as 0.5.
I like it.
So most of my list you'll see have a Yawgwill, a delve spell, and a Snapcaster. You can't really fit 2 delve spells. And nowadays, PO lists probably don't even play any delve spells. Some PO lists are Underworld Breach, so that also uses the graveyard. Um, Mystic Sanctuary uses the graveyard.
That's true.
So
It does.
you just there's just so many cards in Vintage that are taxing your graveyard, and the number of cards in your graveyard that Uro had a really hard time finding a spot. But I do think it's pretty good inside of the Rug deck. The Rug deck is one of the decks that does put cards in the graveyard fairly fast. It's got a lot of Dak Vadens in it, fetch lands, that kind of thing.
True. True.
But that deck also runs Deathrite Shaman, so like it's a lot. It's a lot of happening. But
And it looks like Roland has a Japanese Zendikar Expedition strip mine,
of
which
course
does
he
not
does.
exist. Of course he does. Yeah.
Of course he does.
Um, that
Roland is
that's a crazy
king
one.
of the pimped out vintage decks for sure.
That's just a funny one. I just realized that. I don't know if he had that before, but I'm noticing it now. That is crazy. Um, anyway,
Yeah, that's a yeah. His decks look really beautiful. That's for sure. Actually, let's look at his list right now and see what he's doing because you can build bug in a couple different ways.
yeah, I'm interested in your
So
analysis.
we're seeing 4 strip mine, 1 wasteland, which is pretty normal. There are some lists recently that have chosen to go with a Mystic Sanctuary route, but this is more of a mana denial plan. So the full set of wastelands as well as a basic forest, and then 2 delve spells, very normal. Choosing a 2-1 split in decay and trophy, so 2 decay, 1 trophy. That's something that I think Andy has been advocating, and Montolio has been advocating for recently. Is abrupt decay, the uncounterable, has been pretty important recently, and the permanents that you need to destroy are typically 3 or less. So decay on a bit of an upswing. 1 push in the main, 1 daze, pretty normal. 2 Oko, 1 Sylvan Library in the main. That's an interesting inclusion to help battle the fair decks, like maybe the new Uro deck that this deck might have a problem playing against.
True.
3 Leovolds, 1 Brazen Borrower, which I like a lot. Catch-all answer. It answers one of the problematic cards for this deck, which is Tinker, Sphinx of the Steelwind.
Okay.
When your whole deck has green, black and green removal spells, or green and blue removal spell with Oko, basically you just have no way to deal with the Sphinx of the Steelwind, which is just pro red, pro green. So Brazen Borrower is a way to bounce that. And then 2 Collector Roofs in the main, which is regrettably probably also correct, as much as I don't want to see 2 Collector Roofs.
I was skeptical of the Brazen Borrower, but now that you explained it, it makes perfect sense because I was like, there's no Merit Lages in Vintage. Why do you need Brazen Borrower? But I didn't think about all the things that you.
It's funny you should mention exactly Merit Lage.
Here we go.
Because there are now, in fact, Merit Lages in Vintage.
All right, here we go.
One of the more popular decks that people have been picking up over the last few months. It's actually a deck I played it in the most recent Vintage Showcase qualifier, so the Mox qualifier for the last season. It's a combo workshop deck. So you play main deck Leyline and you play Helm of Obedience as a one-shot combo.
Right.
You play Thespian Stage Dark Depths. You also play Mirage Mirror Dark Depths. You know Mirage Mirror?
Yeah. Does that work? You
Yeah.
copy it and it becomes a Dark Depths?
Yeah. You
Okay,
copy
it
it,
works the
comes a
same
Dark
way?
Depth with no counters on it, and comes a 20/20.
I like that.
There's a couple other different 2-card combos. So this Collector Roof is doing a pretty good job.
All right.
Locks down one of Roland's mana, though.
Yeah, that's not the most exciting, I guess.
Both. I missed the whole first half of this game, I think. How many cards have been cast? Well, I was looking at the deck list, talking about Bug, and both sides have almost no resources. Locked heavily on mana, though surprisingly, the Breach deck has more lands in play. Let's see what happened. Looks like a Dig Through Time was pitched to a Force of Will. A Wasteland a Wasteland and a Strip Mine were both used, but it just looks like the Breach player drew a lot of mana. Kind of crazy. That can happen. Trying to deny mana, and if your opponent just keeps drawing lands, then it can kind of backfire.
This is true.
Where'd the oof go? Oh, it got lightning bolted. Looks really good for the Breach side of things.
Yeah, Roland's
it's
not
just surprising because I didn't hate Roland's hand. It didn't have a Deathray Shaman, which would have tied it all together.
He did stop the Breach. He kind of spent a lot of resources, and then I had to pitch his Dig Through Time.
Yeah, but not that the Dig Through Time was castable. Only has 1 blue source.
Right, but if he didn't pitch it, maybe he'd be able to cast it like now if he drew a land, let's say.
Sure. Yeah, this game looks completely different if the turn 1 play was Deathray Shaman.
Like if Roland had untapped on his turn just now, dropped a blue land and cast Dig Through Time, we would be feeling a little differently.
Dig Through Time is definitely a powerful card, though doesn't always hit is something that people need to keep in mind. That's a lesson that I like to parrot from heck, why am I forgetting his name?
I'm not sure.
Joe Brennan.
Oh, okay.
Joe Brennan likes to say that Dig Through Time doesn't always hit. It came up multiple times on the Italy trip, and basically a bunch of Americans went to Italy and played in Nebraska's War and Four Seasons, which are 2 Italian tournaments. That was what, last year or a year before? Well, maybe not last year because last year didn't happen. Year before last year.
Yeah, I think that was 2019. I kind of remember a couple of people I knew were involved.
Yeah, time is just disappearing. Oh, and GP Bologna, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yep.
Yeah. So, I played a lot of Bug versus Esper Pio with Joe, and that was something that came up multiple times. Like, why are you letting this Dig Through Time resolve? Because you're not gonna 100% to hit.
It's true. You're not.
It feels weird to say that when you're looking at 7 cards, but oh, have I had some bad dig through times.
Yeah.
Especially when your deck is like PO that has a lot of air in it. If Moxen and lands aren't a hit and they're half your deck, then
Yeah.
could totally result in that. Though this deck is a little different, I would think, with Underworld Breach and Demonic Tutor being 1-card combos. So possible that that doesn't hold as true anymore. All right, so there was a Demonic Tutor. The Demonic Tutor was forced.
Yes,
So
it
we're kind
was.
of still in the same spot where Roland has a couple cards in hand, but no mana to play them. Though the jet was freed up by the Collector of Dying, which is nice.
Yep. Name Machine, thanks for the resub. 7 months. Appreciate you. How's it going? Um, yeah, and I see a chat pointing out surprise Roland's not on shop. So Roland's been playing shops a bunch recently, as far as I know, on Magic Online, but only has bug and paper at the moment, and is working on picking up a few more pieces for shops in paper.
Yeah,
Roland's always moving things around, everybody.
I always knew Roland by his very nice looking bug deck.
Yeah.
In paper, but I'm pretty sure. Yeah, just been jamming mostly. I mean, a couple other decks, but pretty sure they picked up the tag Shop 3 Ball on
Yeah.
Magic Online, and that's been the motto.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a draw. Gosh.
Here's
Though,
here's the
was this
thing
the,
about. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
this was the turn that the second land was drawn. So
Yes.
no follow-up land play. Collector Roof locking down the jet. No mana on Roland's side.
Yep. Yep.
Though maybe Roland feels like he needs to do that to stop a potential breach or tinker.
Yep.
Looks like it worked out for him. But that's a play that you don't see too often, is Gush without the land drop being able to be played after. Probably would not vibe with Steve Menendian's Gush book. Oh, Wasteland. For the red source? Yeah, the red source here looks good. I thought the Breach player was in very firm control of this deck, but it doesn't not seem like that came to fruition. Maybe they just did not find the cards they needed to extend their lead.
Yeah, I don't know if flooding out is the word, but it seemed like Jesse's just drawing a lot of nothing that relevant right now.
I mean, there was a mystical, there was a scroll, but the scroll couldn't get the ancestral because the ancestral was already used. It
Goyf
looks
on the stack now.
quite bad now for the Breach player in a match that I thought they were going to win pretty favorably.
Yep. Chat's
This
wondering.
is the second Collector Roof of the game, Andy. The first Collector Roof was dealt with fairly easily with a Lightning Bolt, but you can only play so much permission in your combo deck.
Yeah, it's gonna be weird to see how the Magic world comes back together post pandemic and what events look like, who shows up. Like I don't know.
Yeah,
There's a lot to be figured out.
it's gonna be weird.
Yep.
It's gonna be weird.
And then there's going to be a lot of people like you two who have, for the time being, transitioned completely to digital. And
Mm-hmm.
some of those people, some percent of them, will just say like, "I'm a digital player now. Like, whatever. I don't own cards anymore, and I don't care." And there are a few of those. I won't name any names, but
Yeah,
they do exist.
I mean, I was already kind of trending that way pre-COVID.
Yeah.
There's
There's
a
nothing wrong
great
with that.
local
There's nothing wrong with that.
there's
I'm
a
just
great
saying.
local shop that does a proxy vintage tournament every month or so near me.
Yeah.
ELD's shop,
Wait, which state
and
are you in again?
I'm in Rhode Island.
Oh, you're in Rhode Island. Okay.
So up in Mass, ELD has I just call it ELD shop. I don't remember the exact name of it.
That's
But
okay. I don't
he
know.
was running great like proxy tournaments where you had like 8 people show up and play some vintage, and it was great. But that was about the time when my stream was starting to pick up. I didn't want to miss a Saturday challenge. That's like the one thing that I don't
Yeah.
miss. Every week I'm on at Saturday, 1 p.m. Got to stream the challenge. So it was
Yeah.
like hard to choose at that point, like which one I should go to. So it was tough. But now we don't, now that choice is made for me. But
Yeah, that's true. Um, All right, neither player
Okay,
with a.
Black Lotus.
Okay, I was just gonna say neither player with a particularly explosive start, but then Roland changed my mind.
So
Uh,
what's the worst thing that could come off this Black Lotus?
yeah, I don't
Leovold.
know. Is it Leovold?
Well, it can't be Leovold now because we just
Okay,
lost our third color of mana. So it's just a Deathrite Shaman. A very pretty Deathrite Shaman.
very
Um,
pretty. Yep,
but just a Deathrite Shaman.
yep.
So, hmm. Preordain.
What about sideboarding? What do you think? What do you think Jesse does with sideboarding here against this deck? Because
Um,
Roland has a lot more
so
disruption than the decks we've seen so far, right? Would you say?
yeah, Roland's deck matches up fairly well versus this deck, especially with main deck Collector Roofs, sideboard Vigor, even maybe traps of some kind. I'm not sure which traps. It's always tough to choose how you want to attack these Breach Tinker decks. I would think at least Force of Vigor. I don't know how many, if it's one or two. Um, from the Breach side, though, I would suspect even though Roland does present an answer in Brazen Borrower, I would still suspect you would bring in Sphinx of the Steel Wind as an additional Tinker option. I don't like cutting Citadel. I think you want to have them both in your deck, but I would probably play both Tinker Citadel and Tinker Sphinx. Uh, it does force Roland to find exactly Brazen Borrower to answer it, so it's still pretty powerful.
Do you ever consider, well, not you, I just mean a person. Do they ever consider removing Breach and Bergie and just trying to be like a control deck or mid-range or something like that? Just approaching it differently?
Not this version really just can't choose to do that.
Okay.
Due to the way they set up their Grixis I call it Grixis Tinker style mana base where you're
Yeah.
playing Mana Vault and Soul Ring and that kind of things.
Mhm.
Um, a traditional Breach list could choose to maybe play like a Sprite Dragon Plan post board,
Okay.
where you try to use that as your attacking creature, but for this one, you kind of just have to power through, bring in some removal for the creatures, try to jam a Tinker in there. They don't. It's really not that many great options. Like you get to bring in a Braid, which for Collector Roof has an additional removal spell, but when you're in Grixis, you don't get balance, you don't get Swords to Plowshares. So yeah, this looks like it didn't look very favorable for this Underworld Breach deck pre-board, with Roland having two main deck oofs and Abrupt Decay, which is uncounterable and killing Breach. And it doesn't get any better post board.
Makes sense. Just an end step fetch here. Maybe to get mana for his turn.
I was looking at Decays.
No, that's okay. uh,
Decay, again, uncounterable. So if a player's trying to protect their Underworld Breach with Flusterstorm, not going to do it. There's a Tinker on the stack? Well, that's a way the Breach player wins. Okay.
oh, there is a Tinker on the stack. Thank you, chat.
Sapphire Pearl is down. The question will be, okay, it looks like it's the third turn, so there's no land drop to give, but we do have a fetch land to clear the top. The question will be, did they bring in Sphinx? Did they take out Citadel? Did they keep both in? Which one are they gonna choose? If it resolves, obviously. Um, Opponent Roland has Hardcast Force of Vigor mana, so it's pretty dangerous to go for a Citadel. But they could also have the Brazen Borrower, but there's only one Brazen Borrower, so
So if it
yeah.
resolves, what do you fetch up if you're Jesse? Do you go for the Sphinx, you think?
I'm going for Sphinx, yeah. And then I'll just try to protect it from Brazen Borrower if I can. The Sphinx clocks fairly quickly, not insanely quickly, but it does put a decent clock on, and it makes Roland have to find an exact one of. And there's really only, the one of and a demonic tutor in Roland's deck to get there. There's some of the blue cards, so you have Ancestral and Gush and Dig and Cruise to draw into it, but I would put I've always liked to play Magic in a way where you're putting your opponent on the spot to do something about your powerful play.
Is this ancestral after a brainstorm putting two on top a bad sign?
Is that what happened?
I
Oh,
believe so. Just looking for the
so yeah,
third
we
card,
must
I guess.
have drawn into the ancestral off of the brainstorm. So we're only looking at one new card. That makes me think we're likely to see a Tinker resolve here.
Yeah, I think
I
so.
I I, I have a feel. Oh, um, is there a third? What spells have been cast this turn? Oh, I guess a preordain. No, a Manamorphose, and I don't know what spells have been
Metamorphose,
cast this turn.
Tinker, and did he cast
Is Tinker
Preordain
the
this
second
turn?
spell?
Oh, he must have cast Preordain this turn because the Mox Pearl was used for mana for Tinker as well, right? Am I miscounting?
That would be 3. Manamorphose is mana neutral, so I don't think you could have cast Preordain this turn.
Oh, maybe not. Maybe not.
And unless the Pearl was used for mana.
Or maybe he played the Pearl that turn.
Could have played the Pearl. That could have definitely been happened.
Yeah. I mean, it looks like they
Okay,
discussed it.
so
They counted, so they know what they're doing.
repeal on the Sapphire to cycle. Tinker got exiled. Jeez. That's brutal. That is that is rough.
Did that just
It's
win the
gonna
game
be
for Roland in a way?
it's gonna be very hard. You have an active Deathbite Shaman eating your graveyard, prohibiting your breach plan. You've got Wastelands coming down after your opponent has cast Ancestral Recall.
Hmm.
Nothing's to say opponent doesn't still have Force of Will. Anytime, I mean, a Collector Roof is still powerful, even though there's Black Lotus on the side of the table. Just use it to cast the Collector Roof.
Grafdigger's
Oh
Cage.
wow! All right, Cage is another shutdown on Breach. So I'm surprised. Roland did choose to bring in a lot of the cards, and I didn't know how many of the cards Roland would choose to bring in. Though a
Mhm.
lot of the bug sideboard cards are one ofs. You are a demonic tutor deck that just draw cards, so you can afford to have a varied hate package. And I mean, we've already at least seen 2: Mind Break Trap and Cage, so and demonic tutor. Yeah, this Roland is swing the advantage bar way to the left, and Roland is running over this game.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it's close to locked away for Roland. It's in reach.
And remind me which game we're in and who won the other game.
I know that's how it goes on the stream. We're in game 2 and Roland won the first game.
Tarmogoyf. I
Yeah,
remember now.
Tarmogoyf and Oof were swinging in.
Well, the king may stay on his hill.
Yep. Advantage bar, yeah. Maybe I'll implement an advantage bar in 2022, everybody.
Technology's not there yet.
Yeah. Just the tedious work that has to go in for me to make an advantage bar happen is just
I'm sure there's
needs
a
to wait.
widget.
I'm sure there is.
Now
It's
I'm
one of
getting
those things I
ideas.
could barely remember to start the clock.
Yeah.
Like there's just so much to keep track of. All right, collector oof.
Yeah, that is a hard part while streaming, is to keep track of all the things you got to do. There are 2 collector roofs. Okay, yes. Wonderful. This is the point in Magic Online where I say, let's play a different game of Magic. Because I don't have my Tinker. I don't have my artifacts. I don't have my graveyard. What
Yep.
do I have?
Not much, except for a land drop for Jesse there. So what does Jesse
This is
need?
where
What is the miracle get out of this situation card he needs?
Ancestral Recall
Yeah,
into Treasure Cruise
that would be a good start.
into switch to a deck with balance. Um, no, I'm having a hard time seeing any line that gets someone out of this game does start with Ancestral Recall. But I don't think there are 3 cards that I could Demonic Tutor up that would do the job.
Some combination of bolts, a flurry of bolts, and maybe
This is where you send an angry emoji in chat and say, I'm going to go have fun playing a different game where I cast Tinker. This game was very much contingent on that Tinker resolving, like you said at the time, and
Yeah.
after it did not, things very quickly went downhill.
Yep.
Off the King's Hill, all the way down the hill.
All right. Looks like that's a scoop. All right. Let's tune into
Scoop
the
them up.
players.